Thanks for hanging out with us today, man.
Well, thanks for having me.
Of course. Now, I need to start at the very beginning, which is obviously your first ever alcoholic beverage, the one that started it all. So please tell me that story if you've got it.
My dad, when I was growing up, my dad worked at Miller Brewing Company in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So I was around alcohol at a very young age. But he primarily drank High Life. And I think High Life, it was either High Life or Blatz that I got to, have a little sample of, and never overindulge as a kid, but try it. And in Wisconsin at the time, you could go to the bar with your parents at whatever age you were. And if they gave permission to let you drink, you could. So I remember going in my footy pajamas and hanging out at the bar with my dad and my uncles and having a little sip here and there. But yeah, it had to be either High Life or Blatz.
Oh, well, first of all.
Well, there you go. You got some Miller Lite in your hand.
Hell yeah. But second of all, so then what happens when you get to college and you already have all this experience with bars and do you still get into trouble then at that point because of the peer pressure? Or are you just like, you children, you don't even know alcohol?
Well, it's funny. I was a pretty straight-laced kid in high school, trying to do everything I could to get into University of Wisconsin-Madison. So I didn't drink a ton in high school, but once I got to college and learned that beer was hard to get and I had access to beer, I was able to drive my Dodge Neon from Milwaukee to Madison, load it up with beer, and bring it back to the kids at college. So
you were a bootlegger.
I was totally a young bootlegger back in the day.
Yes.
Imagine a Dodge Neon with the whole trunk filled and the whole back seats filled from top to bottom. And as we're cruising down the freeway, people are honking at us. And the minute I pulled into our apartment, it was like, give me a case, give me a case. So yeah, it was pretty funny. But yeah, I was a young bootlegger back in the day.
Did you ever get pulled over and you're like, oh man, I hope they don't look in my backseat?
No, I never did, thank God. Otherwise, I'm sure I wouldn't be here today.
But you are here today now, bootlegging on the commercial scale. We'll call it that. We'll say that's what it is.
Legal bootlegging nowadays.
Legal bootlegging. So how do you go from bootlegging to deciding, you know what? This thing that I've had a lot of experience in my entire life is not something that actually bores me. It's something that I want to continue doing and continue on that legacy and adding my own flair to it. So what brought you to that decision into Mikerphone Brewing?
I think as you go through the stages of life, you go through college, you get your education, then you get your job, and then you kind of go, I need a hobby. And so at the time I was, doing some cycling and stuff like that, but we finally got our house and I'm like, let's convert the basement into a little home brewery and start making some beer. And I've got a deep background in marketing and advertising, so I instantaneously put a label on it, deemed it my own as Mikerphone Brewing, kind of hit the pavement and going to friends and brewers and anybody who would try the beer and give me honest feedback. And it kind of spiraled from there as this little homebrew hobby into a professional brewing career.
And I love your brewery, of course, because it's my two favorite things, obviously, beer and music. So what inspired you to bring that music element in and be like, we don't just want to be about beer. We want a whole other 50% of this thing to be a completely different topic and then marry the two.
Yeah, so the brewery is called Mikerphone Brewing and it's Mikerphone. So I'm a super narcissistic person and had to have my name. No kidding.
But enough about me. You talk about me.
No, I had worked when I came to Chicago. I did some street repping for Aware Records. Then I started working at Verve Life, which is a digital music agency that sat in between big brands and consumers. And the way to kind of bridge the two together was through music. So I did music licensing and creative digital marketing campaigns. And then I switched over to School of Rock when they had moved their home office from Teaneck, New Jersey to Burridge, Illinois, and was doing a lot of the marketing for them there. And so music has kind of always been a thing for me. And then homebrewing and beer became a thing. So I just kind of wanted to marry the two things together. And what I've always said about this industry is that you've got so many breweries nowadays, but we all have a unique story. And for me, my story is music and beer coming together to kind of create this brand and put my identity on it. And our beer names and our beers that we put out are kind of our soundtrack to our life. And that's kind of how we roll with it. So it's craft beer inspired by music. And we bleed music here every day. If you come in, we've got a whole back bar that's all speaker boxes and amp racks. We've got a whole nother wall that's all old vinyl, another wall that's all old concert posters. You'll see signed guitars, side memorabilia, all that stuff. Tap handles are microphones. So it's music all day over here.
You're in deep. Now, I haven't been fortunate enough to be able to actually see on site yet, but do you guys bring live bands in, or will you, obviously, because the pandemic might have messed that up a little bit? Or is it just like a nope, we live, we breathe music, we are music fans up in here?
Yeah, it's funny. We constantly had music every Wednesday before the pandemic, and then with all that shutting down, it was like, I don't know when we're going to go back to that, and I don't know how that's going to play out and this and that. But about a month ago, we had an employee who's a musician. He moved on to a different brewery, but we're like, hey, let's throw one last bash for you, and he busts out his guitar. We have a little 8-channel amp box here and some speakers and stuff like that, and so he put on a show, and then that was like, hey, if we can do that, let's keep going. So we try to book a show every month. We're actually planning a summer block party here at the end of July. We're going to get some bands and DJs out. We have an annual fest we throw every year, and we always invite the kids from School of Rock to perform. And it's the best thing ever because primarily we've got this, kind of middle-aged demographic who come out and you see these kids and like, what is this about? And then the minute they rip in the music, they are blown away. And I'll never forget when the kids performed Beastie Boys. Everybody at the fest stopped drinking beer, just kind of converged around the kids and jammed out with them. So it's always fun to see that kind of play out here.
Oh my God. Were the kids like going full Beastie Boys with it too? Like really getting into it?
100%. And it's so funny to see how these kids are like, they have groups of 5 and they jump in, jump out, and it's a different arrangement of songs, but they bring the heat every time they come out. And every chance they get to perform, they bring their A game. So it's cool.
That's amazing. So, with the pandemic last year, how did you guys focus on getting through that as a brewery with your employees and with trying to figure out probably a different way to even function?
Yeah, so we had our 5-year anniversary the morning that everything shut down. Like we literally had this huge jubilation of awesomeness, and then it was like the announcement came over the TV, and we're like, oh crap, now what do we do?
Oh,
So we kind of, we're like, all right, well, let's halt production. Let's think about what we can do. But then we quickly realized that, hey, no, people can still come out because we are deemed essential. So we transitioned over to curbside only, and we produced more beer in those first few months than we ever did in our history, just because people had no other outlets to go buy and get beer. So they were like utilizing our store as a way to kind of load up their fridge and kind of hunker down and bunker down in their house and have the beer they need to get through it. And so it was a lot of adjusting on our end because normally we package half our beer in cans, half our beer in kegs. We had to go everything in cans, so we had to order more labels, order more cans. But we made it through, and it was initially supposed to be 14 days, and I think it's turned into over 14 months. But every week we kind of just took the challenges ahead of us and kind of learned how to adapt and adjust, as we've all gotten used to saying. But we brought in a huge tent on the side of our building that got us through the months that we need to get through. We did the social distancing. We never had an issue with having to close down because of a positive COVID test. So we were smart, we were responsible, and we didn't hang our heads. We just said, we're all challenged with this. Let's just do what we can within the guidelines and get through it.
yeah, absolutely. So now coming off the pandemic and looking into 2021, what is some stuff that you've maybe thought of during that time where you were just trying to keep your head down and get through it, that you're like, man, but as soon as things come back, this is something that I want to do at Mikerphone Brewing?
You know what? It's all based on the energy that we have here. We built the tasting room to have people come here, experience our brand on site. And once that plug was unpulled, it really it defeated us. I mean, coming into work every day wasn't the same. You didn't have that energy, that feedback from the consumers. So we wanted, as soon as we knew we could come back in and do some stuff, we wanted to start planning events. So we actually had an event 2 weeks ago. We did 4 different sessions, 45 people per session, did a cool sit down fest experience, which we're like, hey, that went off without a hook. Let's go and start doing this block party. So the block party is going to be as big and badass as we can make it. We're going to have a dunk tank. So if anybody wants to try to dunk me in water, we're going to raise some money. We'll have a bounce house for the kids. We'll have DJs spinning. We'll have custom t-shirt designer on site, some local food vendors, and we'll just have a good time with it and try to bring back the stuff that was normal for us before the pandemic hit.
Yes. And nothing feels more summery than a block party with some cold beer. That sounds so wonderful.
We're doing a 90s theme. I think 90s and everything's coming back. So we're like, bust out your Jinkos and your Airwalks and let's go to town and do it up. So
yes. Now I need a Mikerphone Brewing choker. I need a choker.
You know what? We just ordered a bunch of merchandise today, but we didn't get those. I'll have to add that to the list.
Next time. Now, you touched before on ordering labels and things like that. And I did want to talk about those because your beer labels are really awesome because you guys are working with these artists. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we actually work primarily with a husband and wife couple, Nick Segura and Alyssa Segura. And so I met Nick while I was working at a company in Chicago. And I just one day looked at his doodle book and I'm like, dude, your doodles are amazing. Would you ever consider drawing for my labels? And he's like, well, I can draw, but then I'd have to come into digital via my, at the time, girlfriend. And I was like, all right, make it happen. And so since day one, they've created basically every single label we've ever done. And it's been a smooth process. They get my vision. I basically give them, here's the name, here's the style, here's the format, here's the inspiration, go to town. And then about a week later, I've got something in front of me and I'm like, let's go with it. So it's been a really great relationship. Alyssa actually works for Revolution Brewing. So, she's in the game as well. But we've had a really good time with it. And they started releasing some of the hand-drawn prints here at the brewery. So we're vested with them. They're part of the family with us, and we will continue to use them as long as they want to keep drawing for us.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what inspires, I guess, if you have a beer and you want to get a feeling for that beer, what kind of inspires that feeling? Is it when you sip it, this is what it makes you think of? Is it while I was brewing, this was the thing that inspired me to create this beer in the first place, and I want it artistically represented? What kind of inspires you to even give them a pathway for what idea you're trying to get onto that label?
So it kind of goes a few different routes. One, you can start with a name. We'll have a name concept and be like, here's the name, let's riff off of so-and-so. So a classic example, we have a beer called Smells Like Bean Spirit. So I think you could probably get the reference. So we're like, all right, it's a coffee style with maple syrup. Let's have fun with the old Nirvana album cover, but instead of a baby, let's make a coffee bean boy. And they did with including the whole dangly penis in there. So it's legit as and proper as fuck, but it's cool. It's one of those labels that really put us on the map, and it's a beer that has become a staple here for us. And it's just one of those homages to a band that kind of created a whole genre of music for us that was near and dear to us. And unfortunately, I never got to see Nirvana live, but I did get to see Foo Fighters a couple of years back, and it's awesome to see Dave Grohl continue that legacy on and move it on. But in the other instance, we sometimes will get ingredients and be like, all right, we've got these fun ingredients in front of us. Let's concept a beer, and then what does that kind of bring to our mind? So we made a lemonade IPA before, and there's a album called Lemon Parade by Tonic. And so we made Lemonade Parade. Not everything is that much of a ripoff from artists. I've actually talked to several artists and managers about like, hey, am I in trouble? And they're like, dude, no, due to parody law, you're fine. And we actually love it, so don't worry about it. Like classic.
Say that's free publicity.
Exactly. A classic example was like I got an email on a Thursday night, and it was from Paul Rosenberg, and it just said Slim Hazy, and I'm like, oh crap, I'm in trouble, because Paul Rosenberg is Eminem's manager, CEO of Def Jam, and I'm like, I'm in trouble. And it was the opposite. It was like, came across that you're making this beer, I love it. Any chance you can send me beer? And the next thing you know, we started a conversation. I actually flew to New York, hung out with him. We shoot texts back and forth talking about football teams and this and that. And so it's funny how those things kind of can spiral out of it. But we've never had any artists like C&D us. There's been a few that have been like, hey, let's not do that again next time. But most of the time they're like, I'm on board, or let's do a project together. So
yeah.
Andrew,
so now you're best friends with Eminem is what I am just getting from this conversation. Is what I've decided.
Eminem's manager.
No. We're telling people. We are telling people that you are best friends with Eminem. Help me help you. Help me help you.
I did get a pair of the exclusive Eminem Carhartt Jordans. So there's like
best friends.
So yeah, we're best friends. You're right. We're best
friends. Text all the time, buddies.
What up,
you and Eminem. You call him Marshall though. You guys, like everyone else, they call him Eminem, but you know him as Marshall. So what would you say? Somebody walks into Mikerphone Brewing, they want to grab a beer. What can they expect from your beer? What is your brewing philosophy? What kind of product are you trying to put out there?
What's funny? Mikerphone's kind of morphed through the years. In the beginning, we were let's throw it all at the wall and make these crazy beers that attract people. So we were known for making, the big hazy double IPAs, the fruited Berliner Weisses, the super adjuncted sweet stouts. But what we've learned over the years is that our customer base is very diverse. So if you come in here, you'll basically see every style that is out there available to you. So your light pilsners, your sours, your IPAs, your pale ales, your traditional Hefeweizens and triples and smoke beers, up to those crazy stouts into the barrel aged stout. So we've got it all here, and I'm very happy that within the maturation of the 6 years that we've been able to get through that process and make that diverse lineup.
It's an inclusive beer environment.
You know what? That was one of those things. That's why we never did a mug club, because mug clubs are very exclusive. We always want to be very inclusive to our fan base and anybody who walks in the door of Mikerphone.
Including Marshall Mathers, i.e. Eminem, who you are best friends with. Also, welcome to Mikerphone Brewing.
We have another beer called Mom Spaghetti. So yeah, he's got a lot of influence over here.
He comes in here, he says, hey man, make beers based on my life. And you're like, boom, Mom's Spaghetti. It's gonna be on your sweater already.
You get it. You get it.
You get it.
It's fun, right? What we do is fun. We have a blast doing it. And I think if you come and visit here, you'll get that, because it's fun music, fun environment. A lot of we have a color called Mikerphone Blue. It's bright. It's positive energy. Good vibes in here. Our staff is, I can't say enough about it. They're the best. I mean, they really carry us through, and I think everybody who comes here has a great time. So
I need to ask, I used to be a bartender. I definitely have my customer story. We have heard stories of customers stealing light bulbs, straight up from the bar, just standing up on their bar stool and taking one. We have heard stories of customers going into the bathroom and stealing the giant toilet paper things and being like, oh yeah, no one can see this. Do you have a ridiculous customer story that you can share with me?
Well, in the beginning, we used to have a cooler that would be along the path that you go up to the bar to order from. And in the beginning, we were slammed. We'd have lines at the door every day. And people got pretty used to going to that cooler and stealing bottles and putting them in their backpack and nonchalantly walking up and ordering more beers. And we caught wind of it because people have big mouths. But we quickly moved that cooler and changed that up. I don't think we've lost anything else. We definitely have, we have a jockey box that looks like an amp rack. And on the front of it, it's got little dials that you can do. People always steal those off there. I don't know why. It's like, it's a $3 knob. I'll buy you one. Don't steal it off my jockey box, because now we got to rebuild the jockey box. So
to be fair, isn't them stealing it and you're replacing it basically buying them one?
Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah. don't tell everybody stealing though, okay?
He will sick Eminem on you, and he doesn't play around.
The nice thing is we have a ton of memorabilia and guitars and stuff, and no one's attempted to steal any of that stuff yet. So
because it's not for real stealing. It's all like, what can I get away with? No one wants to steal a whole guitar. First of all, that's a heist at that point. There's planning involved. You got to get something to carry it out with. No, these people are just living for the thrill. They just want to take something and be like, oh, I got away with it today. And then it comes out of your business expenses. So
that's the whole glassware thing. They love to steal glassware.
Oh.
You'd be like, at the end of the day, you're like, that was a full rack of glasses. We have half left. What happened?
And that's expensive too. Like, it's not like it's not like 1,000, like whatever, but it's like,
it adds up.
It's not cheap. Yeah.
It adds up for sure.
Absolutely. Well, is there anything else you want to get out into the ether and let the people know about Mikerphone Brewing?
I just think, hey, let's get back to reality and have some beers and have some fun and get around people. Let's feel comfortable about hanging out together. We're ready for you. We want to be back to where we were before this whole thing started. And I think we've all really learned a lot about ourselves, but one thing that's remained for a long, long time is that beer flows and people like to drink beer. And so we're here to serve whoever wants to come up and visit us.
Let's go hang at a summer block party.
You got it.